Welcome back. Another record-setting fentanyl bust. This one happening in Wichita, Kansas. Officials there seized between 500,000 and 1 million pounds of fentanyl. That is enough fentanyl to kill the entire city population. House Republicans are writing to Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, demanding the release of September's border numbers, saying, quote, the American people deserve transparency, not political games. Joining me right now is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. AG, it's really good to see you this morning, and you've been showing incredible leadership on this issue. We're not seeing that kind of a leadership out of the White House. Why aren't we talking about this on a federal? Why isn't this a crisis, according to Joe Biden? We haven't heard anything about it. And this is a poisoning of American citizens.
Yeah, I'm sad to say I think this is what they've expected. I mean, they opened the border up. They realized when they opened the border up that this is one of the consequences, that more drugs are going to come across the border, that more people are going to die. And it appears that they're willing to trade illegal immigration for more drug overdoses. And it's really sad, but that's exactly what they're inviting when they open the border up.
I mean, you're leading a group of 6 state attorneys general demanding that the country's 6 biggest banks turn over any documents related to the United Nations Net Zero Banking Alliance. This lawsuit alleges their environmental and social practices are hurting the American energy industry. This is really important. This comes in the face of the Biden administration's climate agenda. Tell us more about your investigation.
Yeah, so we're really concerned about potential misleading of consumers about what's going on and how this is going to affect them down the road. If these banks are basically cutting off lending, and there's these largest banks in the country and some in the world, if they cut off access to credit for looking for supplies of oil reserves and gas reserves, that's going to have a very negative impact on consumers, and it's going to make us more dependent on foreign oil. Iran, Russia will be much more like Europe than we are an energy independent country that we were just a few years ago under Trump.
I mean, so you've got a wide open border. You've got an administration that is pushing this ESG climate change agenda, and in doing so, trying to put out fossil fuel businesses out of business. And then you've got the media going along with it. You're also now suing Google for allegedly collecting residents' facial and voice data without their consent. You are accused the technology giant of turning millions of everyday Texans into, quote, unwitting cash cows being milked by Google for profits. Tell me about this one.
Yeah, so we have laws in Texas that prevent companies like Google from stealing your facial geometry, basically how your face looks, and also voice prints. And they've clearly violated this law since 2015. And we're going to stop them, and we're going to hold them accountable. They're taking this information, and you can't get it back. I mean, once they have your human identifiers, and these are unique to us, and they've used them, and they've sold them, and they're doing all of this illegally, that's a problem, and they need to be held accountable for it, and they need to stop, because this has dramatic impact on people's privacy, on their lives. And these companies are using this for profiteering at the expense of people's privacy.
Yeah, I mean, there are trillions and trillions of pictures, all different pictures of people. And we don't know who has what. There's a lot here to unpack, whether it's the wide open border or these lawsuits regarding privacy. And I want to get my panel here. Rob, jump in.
Mr. AG, first of all, thank you for what you're doing and for what the governor is doing in Texas with the illegal immigration. You know, here in New York and in Westchester, where I was county executive, we've got these Biden air flights coming from El Paso filled with illegal immigrants landing in Westchester or Stewart International or regional airports around the country. Is it possible for the state of Texas, you in your office, to go after the bus companies, the airlines that are being used as charters for potential information and, you know, human trafficking and all this stuff, because everybody is being affected by this? Clearly, the Biden administration is breaking the law and giving no information to anybody locally. Is there anything you can do to help protect us here in New York when our own, governor and mayor don't want to do a thing about it except whine?
Yeah, so one of the confusing things about Texas, I don't actually have criminal authority. We have local district attorneys certainly could investigate these bus companies, and if they're committing state crimes, we'd have every right to shut the bus companies down and hold them accountable. You'd have every right to prosecute them. The challenge is a lot of these local DAs, some of them put in place by George Soros himself, do not prosecute crimes like this. They do not investigate crimes like this. And so it creates, we have the federal government problem, but we also have a local district attorney problem where they're not actually prosecuting some of these crimes.
Well, I mean, that's a great point, and that is why I think voters are recognizing it and supporting people like Lee Zeldin, who says he is going to declare a crime emergency should he win the governorship of New York. But what about what you're hearing in terms of these flights from Rob? You know, we've got flights coming that Joe Biden has directed, and yet he's been real critical of Greg Abbott and his flights. But he started these flights by sending migrants to different cities, including Westchester, without alerting anybody, including the mayor of the towns.
No, the hypocrisy is amazing. Governor Abbott's sent, what, a few thousand to D.C., a few hundred maybe to New York, a few hundred to Chicago, and there's such an outcry from these cities that are sanctuary cities that presumably are saying we want these people, and then, you know, now that some of them are being sent there, they have real problems with it. But the reality is, this is a huge problem for us. We get over 5,000 people a day. There's no federal help, and the Biden administration continues to secretly move people around all over the country, wherever they choose, without telling governors, without telling mayors, without any preparation on the state's part. And this is just wrong, and it's going to have a detrimental impact, continue to have a detrimental impact on our states and our country.
So you would say it's 5,000 people coming into Texas every day? Because I know for a little while there, Ken, you had like 7,000 people coming into Texas, into Eagle Pass. Are you saying it's averaging 5,000 people now a day?
What I'm saying is, you know, we don't have the numbers, obviously, from the Border Patrol. They're not releasing these numbers like they used to. Under the Trump administration, we used to see them every week. Now we don't see them. We're lucky to see them once a month. So I don't know exactly what those numbers are. I just know that that is a conservative estimate of how many we have to deal with. And if you take that total number of 5,000 on the low end, 2 months of that is more than New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Martha's Vineyard have had to deal with.
Yeah, it's a great point. AG, good to see you. Thanks very much. We'll be watching all of that. AG